Three, two, one. Hey everybody, Harry Welchel here today. I've got Scott Rowley from Peak Prosper. We're going to be talking about how Scott went from $1,000 a month to a little over 8,000 a month in sales in his first 60 days of working with me. So Scott, why don't I turn it over to you? Can you just tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely, Harry. I live in Whitefish, Montana. It's a small mountain town, and I'm just an avid backcountry skier and ski mountaineer. I run a men's performance coaching company called Peak Prosper, and I help high performing entrepreneurs just overcome some of those self sabotaging habits that are holding them back from realizing their peak potential. And we work with them to really clarify their vision, a plan of action to turn that into a reality, and to install high performance, healthy habits that support them in their pursuit of achieving the life of their dreams. So, super stoked on the work that I do, and absolutely love it, man.
That's awesome. I can tell you, yeah, you're fired up about what you do. How long have you been doing it?
Yeah, I've been running Peak Prosper for about 3.5 years now, and full time coaching now for the last year and a half. So, um, yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, very cool. Very cool. So, what do you think makes you especially unique when it comes to helping these entrepreneurs with their performance?
Yeah, so a lot of the guys that I work with have tried things like therapy, and they've tried reading self-help books and installing things like the suggestions in Atomic Habits, for example, and they just can't do it alone, or they can't quite get the intimate connection in therapy that they're looking for to get through some of the things that are really emotionally holding them back from breaking through. And one of the things that makes us super unique is that, first of all, we focus on working with adventurous men that are entrepreneurs. And um, we take kind of a therapeutic approach to our coaching in that we look at past experiences and traumas that are holding our clients back from really breaking through to that next level of success before we move forward to start working on the future. I like to call it the dropping the emotional backpack of the past so you don't have to carry the weight forward into the future. So that's one of the things that makes our experience kind of unique for guys.
Cool. Cool. Are there like certain patterns or common things you see in your clients or that there are these backpacks that they have to offload before they can move forward?
Yeah, there's a lot of just hardness on the self. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm afraid of failure because of failure that's happened in the past. There's a lot of emotional trauma that guys carry around from childhood, and it impacts their ability to really wake up with that passion and purpose each day that fires them up and makes them feel alive. Um, Another thing that's pretty consistent with the guys that I work with, there's some kind of substance abuse challenge that they're dealing with. So alcohol and drugs, while maybe not like a hardcore addiction or alcoholism, is a crutch or something that's used as a numbing agent to just kind of like stuff the stuff down. I call that the emotional bottling effect, where we're just like pushing more of our emotions down inside of us. And at some point, those explode into workaholism, not feeling worthy, not feeling good enough, grief, shame, guilt, all these really harsh things to deal with as a man. The one thing that is consistent that I have found is that as men, we carry a lot of emotional weight with this false perception of just like having to be strong and stay tough and not show our vulnerability. And that creates a really large load on our mind and our ability to actually realize our peak performance. So,
That's super interesting, man. Yeah, it's like all those things. It's so easy for those to hold us back and hold you down. And I feel like I know in my own journey, and I feel like maybe other men are like this. Like it's really easy. Like a lot of men have like a lot of grit and endurance, and I think if I just tough through this, that's the solution. But then they don't ever process any of these things that if they just fix them, they would be like 10 times better, happier in whatever dimension you want to think about. Does that resonate at all with you?
100%. And I mean, after going through what I call the inner work exercise, where these guys actually drop that emotional backpack, there is a literal and metaphorical weightlessness that they feel. I mean, we actually feel the dropping of our emotional load per se. So
That's awesome. That's cool, man. So let's go back to the beginning. Like before you and I were working together, what were you trying to solve? What problem were you trying to tackle?
I was just trying to survive, dude. So I'd spent up until March of 2020 really building my business. I had a consulting and coaching arm to Peak Prosper, and I'd built my business bank account up to a fairly stable place. I think I had $21,000 in my account, and I felt like I had a really solid runway. And COVID-19 hit, and I coined it the COVID collapse, where just a, I don't know. I felt like clients weren't going to buy anymore. People weren't responding to my message. Things weren't resonating anymore. And rather than looking inward, I looked outward and allowed all these outer influences to just shut me down. And so over the next 3 months, I stopped doing outreach. I stopped doing the activities that would empower me with the ability to pivot my business and grow. And I decided to shut my business down. And I applied to several corporate jobs. I was actually in the final stages of interviewing process with a digital marketing agency in Canada, and I was about to sign a role for the director of search engine optimization to develop and build their team. And the VP of operations looked at me and she just asked me if I really wanted this job. She goes, "Scott, do you really want this job?" And I don't know what happened. You could call it like a spiritual experience or something, but I just started crying, man. I broke down. I knew within me I didn't want to take on another corporate job. I've been through that journey in my life. I really want to build Peak Prosper. So in the weeks to follow, I hired a performance coach through Tony Robbins' agency, and I found you, Harry. And at that point, I was doing about $1,000 a month in my business. I was like legit in a place of despair, man. I felt broken down. I felt like the mission that I was so stoked on starting when I started out was like this flickering flame that was going nowhere. And yeah, I was in no place to serve my clients, that clients of the past, clients of the future. I just was in like a bad emotional state as far as like my ability to actually step into the role of coach. It was bad, man. Like my life on the outside looked pretty good. I have a beautiful home in Whitefish, Montana. I have a beautiful fiance. I'm a healthy man. Yeah, but inside, dude, I just felt broken, like legit broken down. That's where I was, man.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's incredible. I mean, do you feel like, and did it really trigger with COVID, or were you having some struggles with the business before COVID happened?
I don't know that it was COVID. I just use COVID as kind of the timeline marker.
Mm-hmm.
And before COVID, I felt like a lot of stuff was a grind. So I would be sending like 30 outreach messages a day and just, I mean, I'd get decent response rates, but the response rates were not such that they were actually conversion centric, like people that I would actually jump on a phone call with. I was creating a lot of content, but the content I was creating felt like a grind. Just everything felt like a grind. My coaching calls kind of felt like a grind. Some of the clients I was working with weren't really ideal dream clients. I also, this is interesting. Up until we started working together, I have operated under this false belief that I must continue to be a digital marketing consultant and a performance coach in order to survive. And we'll talk about how that all changed, but I've overcome that limiting belief. And I believe that that was a big piece that was fueling this sense that I had to do everything. And it just felt, it legit was a grind, man, before COVID. So
That's super interesting. Do you, when COVID hit, like, did you have, or do you have like, other people that are in like a similar shoes as you who, you could talk to about these issues and these struggles and how things are getting worse in COVID? Or did you feel kind of isolated kind of as an entrepreneur when all that was
Uh,
going on?
yeah, interesting question. So I have a business mentor that I meet with on a daily basis. We talk for 30 minutes. He's a digital marketing consultant actually out of Canada. And we actually, I think I isolated myself. We weren't even talking during that time. And it wasn't that I didn't have these resources. It wasn't that I couldn't reach out to some of these communities that I've cultivated or past clients to just jump on calls with, but that I self-isolated. And undeniably that fueled failure, man. Like I put on what we've probably both learned about, the failure uniform, and I just did everything that failures do. I mean, isolate, don't ask for help, don't step back and like look at the business from an objective standpoint of view and change the things that aren't working. And yeah.
It's so interesting. And now like you can see that, but it's so funny. We all do this when we get like lost in the trenches and we cannot see, the stuff that's in front of us.
Yeah.
Super interesting. So when, right before you reached out to me, had it gotten to a point where you would crystallize like that one problem? You're like, I've got to fix this. Or did you even kind of know like what you needed to do? It was just like, was it more vague?
So the problem for my clients or the problem for myself?
Problem for yourself. Yeah. Like, was it just, you knew
Yeah.
that something had to change, or had you crystallize and be like, I need to make Peak Prosper work. This has to work. And the problem is X.
Well, it's interesting and kind of humorous looking back at it now, right? Because my business doesn't have to exist for like me to thrive in life. It doesn't have to. Like the world will continue ticking. I will continue ticking. But I had to reach a point where I felt like it needed to for it to become possible. And the problem or problems that I'd isolated, one was I just had to emotionally feel better. Like first and foremost, I mean, it's pretty hard to work on a business when you're just internally aren't centered and balanced and energetically feel good each day. So one of the big reasons that I hired a performance coach was to work through that. And then secondly, I had to become crystal clear on what my business niche was. And when I talk about niche, I'm not talking about like ideal avatar or ideal person that I work with, but the problems and the challenges and the fears and the desires that those people have, that I can use the strengths and talents that I already have within me to help them get what they desire in their lives. I had to get clear on that. And I knew that I also needed some better mechanism for generating leads, because what I was doing was just fundamentally broken. It was broken because it felt like a grind. Business should not feel like a grind. I've learned, like, it should be fun, man. And,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about it in a few minutes. I was kind of blind to the power of recorded customer testimonials, and that through doing that, I've actually been able to create some evangelists in my brand, like people out there just spreading the good word about Peak Prosper. And I mean, solving those three problems within the business now has been really pivotal to getting me to where I am today. So I wouldn't say that it's one problem. And if I had to isolate one problem, it would be fixing the internal character before trying to go forward and fix the business. So
yeah, it sounded like you were clear. Like I know it's hard. I'm like asking you to go back in your mind, like right before. It sounds like you knew that you needed to change personally, and you knew that maybe some stuff in the business had to change, but you didn't quite yet know what were those things. But like, does that sound fair?
totally. Yeah.
So go ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean, looking back now, I know that I didn't know exactly what those things were, but I knew that I had to change my like emotional energy first and foremost. Just whatever it was, dude, whether it was a shrink that I worked with or a coach or however I figured out how to shift my emotional state, like that was the problem that had to be solved first. So
And I love that idea, and I think it's true. It's like there's not really any business problems. There's just personal problems that manifest in
Hmm.
your business.
Yep.
And it's like once you realize that, it's such a helpful and empowering idea because it means that like um, you just have to take inventory. You have everything that you need to fix your issues if you just are honest with yourself and can get
Yep.
some perspective. Um, so how did you first hear about me? Where did you first hear about me?
We connected through a Facebook group that we're both a part of, and over the months, I just seen the customer video testimonials that you were sharing and the success stories, and a lot of the people that you work with were in the same Facebook group, and that was proof, no pun intended, that whatever you had going on, whatever you had created was working. And that's how I first heard about you. So,
Was there anything in particular that really piqued your interest, like a particular story or post or a moment?
yeah, believe it or not, there's a guy you work with named Oliver, and he's just in one of the most creative niches. He helps people on a consultative basis find unique art for their homes. And I thought it's so bizarre that this guy that helps businesses grow is helping somebody grow an art business. And I thought, well, I mean, if he can help an artist, which is one of the craziest, most challenging industries to tap into, he could probably help me. So that, so to say, kind of like tipped me over the edge. Believe it or not, it wasn't a coaching testimonial. Like, oh yeah, he's helped another coach. So um, that really piqued my interest.
That's super interesting. Yep, yep. A lot of people like Oliver's story, and they just think it's wild because
Yeah.
it's kind of unconventional. Um, that's great, man. That's great. So, as you think back to like the last couple of months of working together, we've been working together for 2.5 months, something like that. Um, we don't have to go through play by play everything, but like, what have been like, two or three things that have been just really impactful for you or really helped you go from 1,000 a month to 8,000 a month?
Getting really clear on how I describe my offer and my program so that it just makes sense. I don't, before we started working together on sales calls, I would have my prospects try to pull the information out of me that they wanted to know so that I could position my offer in such a way that it was exactly what they wanted. And now I position it in such a way that um, it just makes sense to them as a solution to solve their problem. And I'm not recreating my pitch every single time to fit exactly what they're saying. I'm just sharing with them the Peak Prosper program. So I really have clarity around how I describe what I do and exactly what I do. And I didn't have that before. I mean, I had some vague idea. I had a vague way of describing it, but it was kind of mumbo jumbo. So,
Do you feel like that clarity, like, is it something that you've had a chance to internalize, like you've memorized it, and you feel like it kind of permeates like your every part of your business now? Has it gotten to that point yet?
yes and no. I'd say I'm on the path to getting there.
Okay, cool.
I'm going through this really intensive sales boot camp right now, and I'm about 2.5 weeks into that. And going through that exercise has just started to like help me really internalize the mechanics of everything that I do. Um, but I think I've got like another 20 hours of that. So
How's the sales training going? Has that been helpful?
it's incredible, man. Yeah, I meet with a guy a couple times a week right now, and I if anybody can practice sales, practice, I think your suggestion is to continue practicing until you get to 10K a month. And
Have you been
yeah,
surprised with how how many little things that you can do intentionally well, or kind of just not like how much nuance and detail and effort you can put into that one conversation if you know what you're doing?
yeah, and going through it iteration after iteration after iteration is kind of like learning how to ride a bicycle without training wheels. Eventually, it becomes this subconscious activity that we don't have to think about. We don't have to read a script. We just know things fluently. And I believe that helps us position our pitch or what we're saying in such a way that's more in tune with what our prospect is saying on the call rather than just reading a script. So before starting to go through this sales boot camp, I was very mechanical and I didn't bring a lot of emotion into my sales script, and I was just reading everything. And now I know it. I mean, I could share my
Kick it
script with
off.
you right now. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like like improv. Like that's how I think about sales. It's like there's a couple different scenes that are the same scenes on every call, and it's your job to be so prepared that you look like totally present, look like you're just talking, but you are drawing on these reserves that are conscious or subconscious because you've done so much practice, if that makes sense.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Um, any interesting like what else? What other things have been helpful?
I changed my outreach messaging and outreach strategy. So I shared with you, like I was sending 20 to 30 messages a day in direct message, and it was just burning me out. I was sending these cold messages to people I'd never talked to before, and my message to them wasn't really resonating. So I changed that so that it was less salesy out of the gate. And I've started interacting in groups more and really building a relationship with people so they know who I am before I even ask them to jump on a phone call with me. And they like me and they trust me. So I've really changed my outreach messaging strategy, which has really ramped up my quick chats. I think I've done 50 quick chats and strategy sessions over the last 2.5 months here, which is a significant boost. And I've also implemented a process to kind of warm those leads up before I even jump on a call with them. So they watch my value video and they also watch 1 or 2 of my customer testimonials before we have a chat. So I know pretty quickly if they're warmed up, qualified, and really interested in the solution that I have or not, based on if they've consumed some of the pre-call content.
Yeah, so the quantity of your calls have gone up dramatically, which is fantastic. But it sounds like have you noticed a qualitative difference in the calls?
Dramatic. I would say 9 out of 10 people that I speak with want to buy. Of those, 3 people buy. Of the people that don't buy, they just don't have money, or they can't figure out how to get money, or they can't overcome the fear of financial investment in something that will change their life. They've never spent what I charge on a program, so they just can't really wrap their head around making that kind of an investment. But the quality of the calls has gone up significantly. I'm speaking with my ideal clients. They have the problem that I solve. Yeah, it's just night and day. So
Do you feel like it's that who you're reaching out to has changed, or is it that like your process changes people into ideal clients?
I think it's my process, really, because
Isn't that cool?
yeah, yeah, really, yeah.
Yes, feel free to add any more to that. I just think it's super cool.
Yeah. So I was saying I was sending about 30 cold messages per day before we started working together. And I'm still sending 10 or 15 cold messages, but the messages that I'm sending are resonating better and deeper. And I'm building trust and authority and getting these people to like me through the quick chat before we even jump on the call or before I even suggest that we have a call.
Yep.
And that's dramatically changed the relationship that I have with prospects. And I don't feel like a nasty, pushy used car salesman like out there trying to find people. So
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So what tell me more just in general, like what other areas of your business or life have improved.
Everything, man. Yeah. I mean, as I as I'd shared kind of before we started working together, I was at about $1,000 a month. I was gonna shut my doors or this was gonna work. Um, Emotionally, I felt really off center, and that has all shifted 180 degrees. So I've recently done about $8,000 in coaching revenue. I overcame that false belief that I had to be a business consultant and a business coach and a life coach and a relationship coach and a health coach and all these different tools in the tool belt. And I'm really just focusing on one specific offer now. And I feel like so connected to my purpose, dude, and why my business exists. And before we started working together, I didn't have a group coaching offer at all. That's actually a piece of the value add that I built into my program. And I didn't even have the confidence to jump onto a group coaching session and lead that and feel like I would be, I guess, a coach that could actually guide a group of people through a constructive conversation. I've gotten engaged, man.
I didn't know
Since
that you got
we
engaged since
started
we
working
started. That's
together.
awesome.
Yeah. And for that to happen, I had to like become emotionally recentered. I had to like feel like my new self. That had to become the current state of reality for me to even have the confidence to ask the question. So yeah, a lot's changed, man.
Congratulations. That's really exciting, man.
Thanks.
That's awesome. Um, what like what you'd mentioned something to me earlier, like so in terms of revenue, like what have you done total in Q3 revenue wise?
I did $16,000 in revenue in Q3, and uh, that is significantly more than what I did in Q1. I think in Q1 I did around $8,000. So
Cool.
I'm sorry, Q2, not Q1.
Q2.
So
Cool.
yeah,
Cool. So revenue up, emotionally more centered, personal life, um, getting engaged. This is great, man. This is awesome. This is
and
awesome.
here's another one too. So we started working together. I had one coaching client. He was paying me $300 a month, and I believe I had one consulting project that was like a $1,500 quick project, and now I have 9 coaching clients, and I've got 3 consulting projects. So like everything's changed, man. Um, I'm charging more. I have better confidence. Yeah, it's a dramatic difference. So
What do you think? What's been your ROI, or like, what do you think your ROI is going to be on this experience? In total.
I mean, I still got 10x in my mind, man. Like, um,
Do you see the
you,
path to that?
I, I see the path to a 10x return on my investment, and like to date, I think I've made 100% return. So I've 2x'd how much I spent on the program, and yeah. Anyway,
That's
yeah.
awesome. That's awesome, man. So, why did you decide to do business with me? Going back to our sales conversation.
Hmm, great question. So I was a hard sell, man. You remember that? Like, um, I I knew how much economic runway that I had in my account, and I knew that if I were to invest in this program, I would literally have to make my business succeed in the next 30 days, or I don't know, dude. I'd have to go start finding something else out to do. And you you just stuck with me to the end, man, and reiterated the plan that we had built together in our sales chat that would get me from where I was to where I wanted to be. And I clearly understood the steps that were going to be necessary in order to turn that into a reality. They just fundamentally made sense for my business. So I knew that if I invested in this, and if I quote unquote went to the gym every day and did the repetitions necessary to get the result that I wanted, it would work. So ultimately, the reason that I decided to work with you is because I believed that it would work, and it has worked, Harry. So,
That's awesome. Was there anything in particular that sort of kicked you over the fence? Guess my
hmm.
persistence.
um, hmm. You asked the same question enough times for me to internalize the answer that I really wanted,
Interesting.
and and I I wholeheartedly believe that had I not made this investment, that I would be on track, or I'd be working in another corporate job right now, and I'd be okay with that. But I wouldn't be fulfilled. I wouldn't be on this path of pursuing where I really want to grow, peak, prosper to. So the one thing that really kicked me over the edge, man, was just your pursuit and asking the same question multiple times until I was like really honest with myself. So
That's awesome. That's cool, man. So, would you recommend others work with me?
yeah, dude. And I mean, before I share why, I I would recommend that anyone who is afraid of making an investment in their business to overcome that fear of potential failure and focus on the possibility of what could happen if you actually go all in financially, emotionally, and you step into actually playing the role necessary to run your business and make it successful. And the reason I say that is because you asked me the same question like 3 or 4 times at the end of our sales chat initially. And up until the last time you asked that question, fear was holding me in this place of, no, Harry, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And that was really me saying no to my business, man. So, yes, I would recommend anyone who's either stuck or they're in a growth mode. Like, you don't have to be in a doom state where I was in order to have Harry's program be of incredible value to you. If you're looking to grow to 10K a month, which is the path that I'm on to right now, work with Harry. If you're working to grow your business up to 30 or even 40K a month, I would definitely entertain a conversation with Harry and apply the principles that he's built into his program. Because yeah, the power of the flywheel, man, is, I mean, it's immeasurable. So,
Are you starting
um,
to see a flywheel take shape in your business?
yeah, and I am. And the flywheel effect is essentially when you start getting some customers and they start vouching about the quality of experience that they're having with your services, and they start just spreading the good word, and it's like this wheel that starts moving in motion, and once you have some momentum around it, it picks up more velocity. So, um, yeah, it's incredible, man.
That's awesome. That's really good. So, why should someone listening take action right now?
Great question. Because there's no time like the present.
What do you
And
mean?
I mean, was it Thomas Edison or Einstein or Harry who said there's um, no better time to plant a tree than today, unless it was yesterday? Yesterday's already passed. I also I believe that the more we say no to things that actually have the power to change our lives, the more we're saying no to what we actually desire in our lives. The more of the shit that we don't actually want will show up in our life. So if you're looking to change your business, if you actually want to go out and have a greater impact in the world, then take action, book a call with Harry, and just see if his program and his principles actually do have the power to change your business for the better. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to make the decision for yourself. But I believe that slow decisions result in slow results. So whether your action is a yes or a no, take the action now. And don't be the guy who just puts his dreams on the shelf and lets them collect dust And that's what happens to a lot of businesses because they fail to take the actions necessary to actually grow and have the potential impact that they can have. And I mean, take it from me, I fully believe in the principles that Harry teaches. The way that he teaches them is so simple and easy to understand and apply. So if you're ready to step up and do the work and grow your business, then definitely have a chat with Harry.
Nice, man. Yeah, I love it. It's like, I think we all struggle with that of like just taking action faster, right? And it's like the faster you can iterate and take action, the faster you can get where you want to go. But, not all action is equal. Not all action is good. So like as you think about yourself and how you've gotten better at taking action, what criteria do you look at? How do you make sure that when you take action quickly, it's the right action? How can you tell somebody that, why should they take action right now and know that it's going to be the right action? Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, for me, how do I know this was the right action? I've had 50 sales calls in the last quarter. My revenue went from like $0 to $8,000 a month. I mean, the numbers don't lie. So I guess initially some actions are just taken with faith that they will work out and they are the right decisions for us to make. But until we have that like data, the analytical feedback that actually shows us in a business context if it was the right decision, it's an emotionally driven decision. And I think the important thing there is to just continue to do the self-work, the inner work, the mindset work to keep your mind right so you don't spin off into, what do you call it, like buyer's remorse, because that can just ruin your ability to actually apply the principles. So
totally.
How do you, yeah.
No, go ahead. What were you going to say?
The question was, how do you know that it was the right decision? And
well, just like, I think people in general, what you were saying earlier was about how a lot of people really struggle to take action quickly. And I 100% think that's true. But I think it's because they don't know how to judge actions well. So I was trying to kind of engage you and ask you, like, how did you know at the time that you were making the right decision, that you were taking the right action? Like, any comments on kind of that, if that made sense?
Okay. So thanks for reframing that question. And it kind of brings me back to this like fear state. And there's a book by Napoleon Hill called Think and Grow Rich. And he says, fear and faith make bad bedfellows. Where one exists, the other cannot reside. And when we were having a chat, I felt like these opposing forces were like pulling. There was like fear pulling me this way, and there was faith pulling me this way. And fear wanted me to say no, dude. It wanted me to go back into my little, like, trying to figure things out by myself and through some of the other programs that I have that are kind of antiquated. And faith wanted me to just like lean forward. And I mean, given the season, there's no better time to fall forward,
This is good. This is really good. So it's like faith versus fear. And it's like, if you have a lot of fear, it crowds out faith. And the way that I would think about it, like I thought, it's like, if your mind is so focused on how it can go wrong and why it won't work, you have no space to rationally judge how it's going to work and how it can go well if you do the right things. And so you're actually being irrational if you're just focused on all the things and having that fear-based scarcity mindset, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think there's two other things to add on here too, and that there's this desire for instant results. I mean, we live in a world where we can like things and get messages in an instant fashion, and business doesn't work that way. Business is not an overnight thing. It's putting in the repetitions and actually getting the result that we work for. And I actually think that the more we move towards this instantaneous world, it will be harder for people to invest their lives in building a business that will result in a future return. It's like the law of cause and effect, right? Like an action taken today has a immeasurable compound result in the future. But when that result comes in the future, people often forget about what they did up here to get the result. It's why people stop going to the gym. Um, and I forgot the other piece that I was
No,
going
I
to
mean, and
add
on
to
that,
this.
it's like as it gets harder and harder, as people's attention spans get shorter, harder for them to think in that way, the more of a competitive advantage it becomes for those who can create space to think, you know, reasonably about how long-term cause and effect those decisions. And like, it's only been like 2 months for you to see this success. It's not been that long, but it's not like one day. And like through those 2 months, do you feel like you've had like adequate support from me? Do you feel like you've had access to me through all of that, my help?
Yeah, I mean, between the weekly calls and the Facebook community, and I've had all the support that I need and could ask for. I don't think that I've showed up enough the last few weeks, but I've had my time pretty committed and dedicated to quick chats and strategy calls and delivering service. And the second thing that I was going to add is that the more our mind focuses on what could go wrong and what we don't want and our fears, and we're making decisions from that space whether we believe it or not, the more of that stuff we'll get. So when we start saying yes to the programs like what Harry offers, and the waking up early to take care of ourselves so that we're mentally framed right for the day, the more we will get what we actually desire. The more space will be created to actually create and um, get what we desire. So,
I like it, man. I like it. That makes sense. So, Scott, what is your number one piece of advice for coaches and consultants?
my number one piece of advice,
Yeah.
I mean, believe it or not, man, and this is pretty personal, stop drinking or make it a manageable thing in your life. I stopped drinking 3.5 years ago, and that has made all the difference. It's changed absolutely everything in my life. It's made this business that I lead today possible. Um, yeah, make sure that your relationship with alcohol is manageable. Otherwise, it will absolutely ruin your life and your business. So um, that's my number one piece of advice.
Enough said, man. Yeah, that's awesome. That's yeah. I that makes sense. That makes sense. So, Scott, this has been so great talking with you, catching up, hearing about where you're at. I'm very excited for you. Um, what is next for you? Like, what's next in the next quarter?
Yeah, super stoked for Q4, man. I'm finalizing the details of V1 of my coaching program. So it's an 8-week program, and I have worksheets, and it's a linear process that I take guys through, and I'll have everything dialed in and fine tuned. It's been kind of all over the place up to this point, and I'm really just happy to be bringing that together. I'm on track to do, my goal is $45,000 in revenue this month, and I don't have to get more
This
clients than
quarter.
this quarter, not this month. Yeah. Um, I don't have to get more clients than I got last quarter. I'm just raising my prices and bringing more value to the guys that I work with. And I'm going to ski a bunch of powder, dude. So yeah,
That's
I'm
awesome.
stoked. I'm stoked for Q4, and I look forward to changing more people's lives and continuing to work with you, Harry, and helping people in our community that you've started to build. So
Awesome, Scott. Well, I'm so excited for you. I think your mission and your business is fantastic, and the world definitely needs it. And can't wait to see what you do in the future. So, if anyone's listening and they're interested in your story, where can they find out more about you online?
yeah, absolutely. So I'm on Facebook. You can find me if you search for Scott Rowley. My last name is Rowley, and I've got a big outdoorsy Facebook profile. It'll be pretty hard to not be able to pick me out from the crowd. And you can also go to peakprosper.com, and that's peak like PEAK, prosper, PROSPER.com. So yeah,
Cool.
check us out. And if it resonates, let's have a chat. I'd love to help you out.
Awesome, man. Well, Scott, thank you so much. We'll talk soon.
Absolutely. See you, Harry. Great connecting with you, man.
All right. Peace.
See ya.
Bye.